All right, I think we are live. So welcome everyone to another live Q&A here on the Maran Motoring YouTube channel. I hope you're all having a good weekend here so far. Thanks for joining me here on a wonderful summer Saturday afternoon. I appreciate taking the time to hang. I see many of you are already here in the chat, and so thanks for joining in. And so for this live stream, I'll be going for about an hour and a half. I'm going to have to stick pretty close to that time because I'm going to be going to a fun car show after this. So I have to get out right at 2 o'clock here Eastern time. But otherwise, yeah, like all the other live streams here, we'll go through all the questions as best we can. I'm going to give priority answering to anyone who's a member or anyone who does a super chat or super thanks. And then, yeah, we'll just have a good time here. So I see a bunch of people have joined in. Thanks everyone for joining. See Kevin, Jazz, Hugo, Triton Car Guy, so yeah, let me see. First member question here. I see we had a little bit of discussion beforehand there, so let me find my place. Let me see. Jay says, hey, Matt, good to see you. How are you and your family? We're all doing great. Thanks for asking. Hope you're doing well too, Jay. And so Dom's here as well. Thanks for joining in, Dom. And yeah, a lot of people saying we're getting a lot of rain recently. Yeah, we had a huge downpour of rain. When was that? It was, I think, Thursday night, and it was intense thunder and everything else. It was pretty crazy. I had a press car in the driveway, and I was really hoping it wasn't going to hail because that would have not been great. Thankfully, we didn't get any hail, but I don't know about any of you guys if you had any hail issues recently, but that's always scary. All right, so other questions here. Jill says, good morning, Matt. At work feeling sleepy, but listening in. Well, thanks for joining in, and hopefully it helps the time pass a little faster there at work. So I see Omar had a question. He said, Kia Telluride or Toyota Grand Highlander, Hyundai Palisade. Between those three, it's going to come down to what you're most focused on. I think for me personally, I would go probably Grand Highlander now at this point. Now that I've spent a week with one, and I just posted that video this past week. If you haven't seen that one, Omar. But I think that bottom line, Grand Highlander's a little more refined with the powertrain. I like the Hybrid Max version because it's a lot faster than the Palisade and the Telluride. And it basically matches them on features, aside from the Palisade having a couple little things. It has like a somewhat of a massaging driver's seat and a heated third row in the Palisade, but those are two things I could live without. So for me, Grand Highlander, you get better fuel economy. It just seems to be better, in my opinion, in most of the ways these days. So that would be my pick. Andy, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, trade my STI for an F80, best decision ever. That's awesome. Congrats on the new car. And I think, coming from an STI, I mean, the handling's amazing in the STI, and, it's a very raw, old school feeling. But I mean, yeah, when you get up into an F80 or anything else that's newer and more refined, I mean, just the leap in fuel economy, the leap in, power, refinement, interior niceties. STIs are fun in their own way, but if you're looking for a modern experience, it's not really the place to get it, unfortunately. So yeah, glad you're happy with the upgrade there, and hope it continues to treat you well. Let me see here. So Jay says, I'm hoping for more news on the cherry teas of the BRZ you mentioned in the news. Additional inputs. I haven't heard anything new since the weekly update yesterday, so we'll find out tomorrow. It's unfortunate I wasn't able to do the live stream here on Sunday because then we could have had a live discussion about it. Instead, I'll be giving my thoughts most likely, in the next weekly update here. I may do a dedicated video on Monday, but I'm going to be too busy tomorrow to do anything channel related. So unfortunately, I'm going to be missing out on that big debut. If it's something that's actually big, we'll see. I'm still betting it's going to be the performance package. We were expecting them to announce the performance package, any day, basically, after Toyota announced it, So I still am thinking it's that. If it's the TS, I'd be surprised because, I guess they could test it without the wing, but I feel like there would have been some type of spy prototype that would have been spotted. But they could have maybe been really good about sneaking it out there. I don't know. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see. The performance package will be great if you're someone who, tracks the vehicle and you need the bigger brakes. But otherwise, I can't imagine anything they're going to do that's going to actually be super exciting, in my opinion. I think the standard car is great as it is. And so, a little bit of extra grip, a little bit of extra braking is great if you want that. But I honestly don't think you even need it unless, again, you're doing track driving. So anything more will be fine, but, it's not going to have more power most likely. So to me, I kind of have a low expectation for that car, but it's always great to see them do some new variants and new performance stuff for the people that are into that. Dom says, any thoughts on backup cameras being standard on most vehicles and dash cams still being a rare option from the manufacturer? I think backup cameras were kind of marketed as a safety thing because I guess, when was it, 2017 or 2018? All of a sudden they, figured people can't be trusted to use their mirrors for some reason, and we need to have a backup camera. I know a lot of it was because there's things you can't see from your mirrors, little kids and things like that. The backup camera solves. So, I mean, it was good that they added that as standard. I think with the dash cam thing, I think that would have to, well, that's also a slippery slope getting into like privacy concerns, which is why I think it will stay an option. I think if you force the manufacturers to put dash cams in cars, you'd have a lot of people freaked out. Like, why do you want to record what I'm doing? I mean, I guess you could still have the option of turning it off, but the fact that it would be in the car, I mean, look at the people that are freaked out about, webcams on your laptop that they're covering, even if they're not actually working. There's a lot of people that get freaked out by cameras, and obviously a backup camera is somewhat different because it's not hooked up to any kind of recording device, at least most of the time, I think. But, with those dash cams, the privacy concerns, I think, would be a lot. I also think as far as manufacturers go and as far as safety goes, it's not really a safety issue for dash cams. If dash cams were ever made mandatory, it would either be because the government wants to watch us, which obviously is like a crazy fringe theory, or it would be just an insurance driven thing, in my opinion. If maybe insurance companies were like, look, we need to, be able to reconstruct these accidents better or whatever. And, maybe if the insurance companies, if not made it, a law, if they maybe just incentivize you, like, hey, if you have a car with a dash cam in it and you have it running, we'll give you a 10% discount on your rates or something like that. If there was something like that possibly, and they're kind of trying to do that if you have one of the insurance companies that has an app where they will, use the GPS and the accelerometer in your phone to, decide when you're doing good driving and bad driving. I think that kind of, obviously isn't quite as good as a dash cam for them, but it's close enough without having a camera involved to freak people out. And I think that's even something a lot of people don't even want to use those apps, but that, kind of gives you a discount in exchange for the data of, how you're driving. So, but I think it really just comes down to safety stuff, and, the dash cam being a safety thing, or the backup camera being a safety thing, and dash cams not really being that so much, in my opinion. But that's a good question. Thanks for bringing that up. But it is nice to see car companies starting to offer it. Toyota offers it now, and GM's been offering it for a while. And I think there's a couple of others, but it's still pretty rare. But I think that'd be a great option to have, because most of those are so much better integrated than the aftermarket stuff. It's like in the Bullet, I have this thing hanging from under the rearview mirror, and it's not very pretty, kind of annoying to have there, but nice to have. And that's why we all put up with them. Hugo says, I don't know how I feel about the back end of the Santa Fe. It looks like Mario Brothers designed it. Yeah, it definitely has kind of that pixely kind of thing, but it's a little different than like what they did with the Ioniq, where that is kind of a little more futuristic. That's kind of more old school, I think, with the Santa Fe, the way they designed it. And yeah, it's odd. And we will see how that plays out for them. I will be very curious to see what the average person thinks about that styling, and if it tanks Santa Fe styling or not. I have to commend Hyundai, though, for being bold enough to try these crazy designs, because it really bit them in the butt with the Sonata when they went crazy on that. And then we're like, oh, wait, people aren't buying Sonatas anymore. And the other part of the sedan market was relatively steady. It was just that people didn't like this new Sonata styling. So I think going out on a limb like they did with the Santa Fe is brave, because that's another strong seller for them, and a little more daring than the Tucson design, I think. So, I commend Hyundai for the continued bravery, even whenever it burned them once. They're continuing to put themselves out there and try this stuff. So we'll see. The good thing about Hyundai is they're very quick to react. So if people absolutely hate it, you can see a refresh in probably 12 months time, or maybe 24 months, but it'll be quick if people don't like it. So we'll see how that plays out for them. But that'll be one. I'll be eating my popcorn there and watching the sales. And Jay says, with Toyota moving forward with the GR 3-cylinder turbo from the Corolla, what could Subaru do for the BRZ moving forward? Maybe FA motor from the WRX? Just confusing since both platforms are all-wheel drive platforms. Yeah, well, I mean, they are all-wheel drive platforms, but like with the Corolla, for example, that is front-wheel drive and all-wheel drive. Like the platforms are very flexible. So thinking about platforms, it's not so much like a one chassis, one wheelbase, one thing that only fits certain things. A lot of these are very modular, very flexible. I mean, look, like the Grand Highlander is on the same platform as a RAV4 and the Highlander. I mean, you can stretch that thing like crazy. You can put in the Hybrid Max, but they're not going to put the Hybrid Max in the RAV4 most likely, even though it's the same platform. So there's a lot of, platform is a very loose term these days as far as just because they are so modular. So I wouldn't think that you have to worry about the GR motor being constrained to a certain drive train layout or a certain vehicle size. Obviously, since it's so small, you can put that in basically anything. And if that all-wheel drive system fits in the Corolla, then I would assume it would fit in an 86 as well, because it's not like a Corolla is a big car. So, as far as your question there about what Super could do for the BRZ, based on what we were talking about in last week's update, as far as, the rumors and stuff, I would be surprised if we get a third gen BRZ. I don't know. I feel like, yes, this was still mainly engineered by Subaru, but I almost feel like their heart isn't in it 100%. I could be wrong, but I don't know. It still just seems strange to me that they even offered the second gen. I'm happy they did, but with how Subaru is going more, vanilla with, a lot of their offerings, and they're going for the off-road rugged thing, a rear-wheel drive, low little sports car from a company that's not really known for doing that kind of stuff, it's just kind of odd. So I don't know. I mean, Subaru can do whatever they want. I mean, if they wanted to, they could do a third gen that finally fits the WRX motor in it. They could finally, they're doing more hybrid stuff going forward. So it could be, we stick the same motor in it, but we have a hybrid, pack to boost it a little bit. They could do something like that. There's the possibilities are endless, really. But if I were a betting man, I would say that, they're probably going to I'd put my money on them not doing a third gen and Toyota doing it on their own going forward, like the rumors are suggesting, at least some of the rumors. Wheatman says, good afternoon, Matt. Enjoy your weekend. Thanks. I hope you're enjoying your weekend here so far as well. And thanks for joining in. And the Triton Car Guy said, don't get me started on inward facing cameras in semi cabs nowadays. Yeah, that's a whole nother can of worms. You're right. And Goth Rocker says, Matt, just joining, very busy today. Just curious, why is the stream on Saturday? Are you heading out of town for a manufacturer review? Toyota sending you to Hawaii again? I'll try to stay tuned. No more Hawaii trips on the horizon, unfortunately. I would love to go back as soon as possible, but nothing on the horizon. No, I'm just going to a car show later today, and tomorrow we have a packed day with a bunch of stuff going on, so I just wouldn't be able to fit it in. So that's why I was moving it to today. And thanks for joining in, for however long you can. I totally understand, especially here in the summer. It's tough for people to join in because, it's a beautiful summer weekend. Everyone has other things they're doing as well. So no problem if anyone, says hi and leaves. It's totally fine. Dom says, I've driven vans and semis where my buddies had cameras. Yeah, I feel like that'd be kind of something you have to get used to, of having yourself recorded all the time. Jay says, would the 2.0T from the Supra be a better fit for the GR86 or GR Corolla's engine? I've heard some rumors going around. Interesting. I mean, if BMW wanted to get in on that, that's something that I guess, would be an option. I mean, that's a great motor. And I even said way back whenever I reviewed the 2.0 Supra, I said, if you want a turbo BRZ or 86, this is it. And it's great. It's a lot of fun. I know a lot of people are down on the 2-liter Supras and they don't sell very well, which means if you're looking for a good sports car bargain and you're open-minded, check out the 2-liter Supra. It is really a fun car. I'm guessing you'll get some good discounts on it. You still have almost 300 pound-feet of torque. It's still tail happy. It still sounds good in my opinion. I think they're great. And especially if you want something that has a good automatic, since the automatic and the GR86 and the BRZ aren't great, you have a much better, snappy, quick ZF8 speed and the Supra 2.0T. I think that's really, I'm so glad they offered that. It seems like it was a waste of time for them, unfortunately, because no one's buying them. But I think the 2.0 Supra is a great pickup still. As far as that motor in the GR86, I mean, that would be fun. That would be awesome. I don't know how that would fit, because now you're talking about a big inline motor, and so you would have to completely redesign that car, much higher hood, higher seating position and raise everything up and essentially make a 2 series coupe. It's what you would have to do, to accommodate that basically. You could probably make something a little smaller, like that motor fits in the Z4 and stuff, but you'd have to, just redesign that car because it's not designed for that. So maybe for a next gen, as far as your Corolla having that motor, I think that would take away some of the specialness from it. If you just drop that motor in a Corolla, then you still have a fun car, but it's to me not as exciting as that crazy big turbo on a little 3-cylinder engine. It's just the whole charm of the Jericho Corolla is the rally kind of thing, and that motor, in my opinion, is really what makes it. And so I think it'd be a little more lackluster with the 2.0T personally, but we'll see. Maybe we can do some cool stuff with it. And Italian Nice or Italian Ice 678. Thank you so much for the very generous super chat. He says, "Hey Matt, I hope you're having a pleasant day so far. Have you ever considered putting these live talks on Apple Podcasts? Just curious." I could put them on there after the fact. That's not a bad idea. I know a lot of people have been wanting podcasts for a while. I think the thing about leaving them on YouTube here is that I feel like the search and discovery on Apple and just all the podcast platforms isn't great. Apple Podcasts would be fine, but I haven't heard this, I think in the past week or two, or Matt Farrow was complaining about Spotify, how Spotify doesn't pay him at all for those podcasts being on there, and yet they load them up with ads. So, the person has a crappier experience, and it's, and the creator's not getting paid for it. So, but Apple Podcasts, I have to learn a little bit more about them, but I could potentially download the audio and put it on there if people are curious. I think it helps being on YouTube here because you can actually see the comments I'm talking about and, see the interaction here. And that is something people can watch after the fact as well. So I kind of like having that. And also, like, keeping everything on YouTube is just nice because then, people have the subscribe button right there. They have, everything right there so they can watch more videos and things like that. And, YouTube's now doing a big push with their podcasts as well so that, people can, listen to those. I think you still have to have YouTube Premium to listen to audio only on YouTube with your phone locked, but I could be wrong. But now, especially with the podcast push on YouTube, I try to keep everything on YouTube as best I can because at the end of the day, YouTube is still the platform that pays me and is the reason why I'm able to do this as my full-time job. So trying to focus mostly on YouTube. But if I'm also adding in the Apple thing, that's something I'm open to doing, but that's why a lot of people have been wanting weekly updates on podcasts for a long time. And it's like, I would have no way of monetizing them unless I go out and sell ads every week, which I'm not able to do. I don't have that many ad opportunities. So I'd be working for free, basically putting them on, the weekly updates on podcasts. So that's why I have to keep everything on YouTube to, monetize things, at least a little bit, so that I'm not doing this for free. Cause unfortunately I'm not wealthy enough to just not worry about the money. I got to worry about the business side of it. And so that's why I try and focus on, just keeping everything on YouTube and making sure the ad revenue keeps rolling in, unfortunately. But thank you so much for the super chat there. And I'll keep an eye out too if you have any other follow-up questions about that. But that's kind of why I've always shied away from podcasts a little bit. They're just really hard to monetize. And Goth Rocker says, "I wish Americans would start buying cars again. I'm tired of boxy SUVs and crossovers on the road. Most really all look the same. They seem like appliances to me." Yeah, I can certainly see, a lot of people are tired of that. It just comes down to personal preference there. A lot of people like that mental, empowerment of saying, hey, I can go anywhere and do anything in my slightly lifted, wagon and whatever, again, everyone likes different things. I'm not going to judge, but, I think it's a style thing right now. It's I think truly a fad. These things all cycle through. I think that people are going to get tired of them eventually in one form or another, maybe not all of them, but, some of them. And I think, we'll see sedans start to come back at some point down the road. And, who knows how things will evolve. But I think that it's one of those things that, people will be like, oh, I want something different. Maybe I'll try a sedan or, a truck or something. Maybe things will just go and, everyone will ditch their crossovers for everyone just having a pickup truck. We'll have to see. But it's interesting how Americans, basically don't want hatchbacks, but they like hatchbacks if they're lifted and then called something else. It's really hilarious. Hugo says, "Do you think if they make the BRZ all-wheel drive, it would sell more?" I think it can go either way because they would have to be a little more expensive. Right. So yeah, that's the thing is you add all-wheel drive, it adds some extra cost there, but I think it would sell a lot better. And I think that would then jive better with Subaru and their brand. And I think, getting back to what Jay was asking about earlier, if you did see, these two cars split off someday, or even if they continue to stay the same, Toyota could be the fun one that offers the crazy rear-wheel drive version, and Subaru offers the safer all-wheel drive version. Since Subaru, even with the tuning for the BRZ versus the 86, the BRZ is tuned to be a little safer, a little more conservative, a little less snappy with the oversteer. So I think I could see that making a lot more sense. I think it would sell better, especially since Subarus are wildly popular in the snowy states. And so if you say, hey, now there's this cool little coupe, but it now comes with all-wheel drive, then you have a lot of traditional Subaru buyers maybe giving it a second look, whenever before they were just like, oh, I'm never going to consider that. I think that could really help the BRZ out a lot. And yeah, I think that would help its appeal. And then that would also open the door to them doing some type of wilderness version, which I am sure they've at least thought about, and lift it up and, just try and make it like a little mini crossover, especially as you'll most likely see with a Mustang Raptor coming down the road. That'll create a bunch of fuss, and I'm sure Subaru will want to, join in as well. So that would be my guess. If there is a third gen BRZ, it'll be all-wheel drive, and they'll go kind of rugged, just out there kind of, with the whole concept of it of still being fun, but, having the off-road capability possibly. And two, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, trying to appease his business daddy so Elon or Mark won't buy YouTube. I appreciate that too. And yes, I really hope that neither of those people buy YouTube and ruin it. That would be terrible. So fingers crossed. That's the part of the nature of having your career on a social media platform. It's not a very sure thing. And let me see. So two says, hey, Matt, next stream will be on my birthday. That's awesome. Well, happy early birthday. In case the stream, I'm not sure next week if it'll be Saturday or Sunday, but in case I miss it, happy early birthday. Hope you have a great one. And yeah, thanks so much for joining in here too. And Gothrocker says, Subaru is hopefully going to do the Wilderness BRZ. That's what everybody wants. Lots of plastic cladding on a nice coupe. It'll look great, especially next to the Mustang Raptor. I'm being sarcastic. Yeah, well, we're on the same wavelength there. I said that before even reading your comment. So yeah, it's that is the way I think it's going to go if I again were betting on it. And Trunk Car Guy says, if I would if I could afford it, don't do payments and have two cars already. And guess that's, I can't remember what we're talking about there, but talking about something else, maybe the dash cam thing from earlier. Anyway, moving on here. Dom says, do you think we'll see hypercar crossovers, Bugatti, Pagani, Koenigsegg? I think that they've all said no. Bugatti kind of considered something like that, or even a sedan, and then they went back to just the original concept of like, we're just sticking to the two-door coupes. Pagani, I think, has definitely said no. They're very much about lightweight stuff, and so they don't even want to do an EV because they're too heavy. So doing some type of crossover, I think, would not jive with them. Koenigsegg, possibly, but I think you already have, with the Gamera having 4 seats, kind of fills that slot a little bit. So I don't think we'll see that, honestly. And I think, those people that have that kind of stuff, I mean, I guess you could argue the same thing with supercars like the Urus and stuff, but people especially that have hypercars, and that kind of money, they don't want a crossover, I don't think. If they want to have their fun, they're going to go get a fully loaded Raptor, or they'll buy some custom built, trophy truck or something. I don't think that any buyers from that segment are asking for that, honestly, from those companies. I could be wrong. I mean, maybe if you see like the Huracan Storado and the 911 Dakar and that kind of stuff really, really start to get massively popular, maybe, but I think it'd be a long time before you see that kind of stuff from them. And you most likely see a lifted version of those vehicles like the Dakar and stuff before you even see a full-blown crossover. I mean, obviously they see, Ferrari's doing, crazy sales of the Pro Songway so far, but I feel like those other companies are lower volume. They're a little more purist. And I think that they're, they don't have to worry about appeasing a board necessarily. I mean, I guess Bugatti kind of does, but the others, they're their own thing. They're ran by their original founders who do whatever they feel like doing, and people line up and pay whatever. It's kind of, the dream of, they have no pressure to do any kind of volume model like a crossover. So I don't think you'll see that, honestly, but I could be totally wrong. We'll see how things play out. Jay says, I'm slowly considering a last gen WRX STI instead of my Type R, since my Type R is a garage queen, but it just doesn't sound right when I actually say it rather than in my mind. It all comes down to what your preferences are. I will say Type R in comfort mode is more comfortable than the STI for sure. So if I were daily driving one, I'd rather daily drive the Type R, honestly, over an STI, unless, again, you drive in a lot of snow or something. But yeah, I mean, STI is still a fine daily driver. It's just you get terrible fuel economy, you get much better in the Type R. Yeah, I'd definitely rather daily drive a Type R. But if it's a garage queen, again, there's lots of other fun stuff as far as daily drivers go if you want something, depending on what you're looking for. And Jay says, just because of Minnesota snow. Okay, so that's the follow up. So with that, yeah, I mean, STI would be great if you're dealing with a lot of snow. GR Corolla, if you can get your hands on one, could be another fun option. Yeah, I mean, STIs are definitely fun. Just, I would say, if you get an STI, leave it close to stock if you can, so that you have some kind of reliability. And just be prepared for 18 mpg, but that's about it. Tom, thank you so much for the super chat there. He says, hey Matt, I have a friend that doesn't drive stick yet, but wants a car with a manual. He wants something affordable, practical, and reliable. What are your thoughts on a new Jetta with a 2.5T for 21 grand? Seems like a solid buy. I enjoyed the little automatic Jetta that I had several years ago at this point. I think it was actually 2018 when I had that last. And I'd love to get my hands on a manual one to test out again, because yeah, that seems like a really fun little car for 21 grand. As far as other affordable stuff with a manual, I guess you don't really have too many options these days, because a lot of those others have pushed them up market. Mazda 3 manual is only at the top trim. Civic manual, I believe, is only for the hatch and the touring. And is it also still on the base hatch? I can't remember if it is or not, but that could be one if it is. They got rid of the Corolla with the manual. So yeah, you don't really have too many options. Impreza doesn't have the manual anymore. Yeah, I guess if they want something practical, Jetta could probably be a pretty good choice. Again, if it's 21 grand for that, yeah, that's probably gonna be one of your best buys. Yeah, for that kind of money, unless you go used, and then of course that opens up to everything else that I mentioned. But yeah, that's probably, it's hard for me to think of anything else that's actually practical that's going to be cheaper than that. I mean, new, you really have nothing else that's going to come in with a manual like at that price point. I think even Nissan Versa maybe has, but that's not going to be as fun as the Jetta. So Jetta may be your best bet. You might have already figured that out there. I don't think I can give you a better option for a new car. So if he's open to use things, though, I mean, again, there's lots of other things like the ones I mentioned, but for new, I think that's probably your best bet. Ben, thank you so much for the super chat as well. He says, hey, Matt, do you typically do your own vehicle maintenance, or are you too busy for that? Typically too busy. I mean, I've done oil changes, and I actually I did a partnership with Pennzoil once, and showed how I've changed the oil on my EcoBoost Mustang many years ago. I think it was probably about 8 years ago now. But I don't do any of my vehicle maintenance. I'm just too busy. And it's also, it's just, for me, I don't really have any maintenance to do because I drive so little. So the Mach-E is zero maintenance. For a long time, longer than we'll probably own it. And the Bullet, it's just oil changes once a year. And other than that, I have to change the cabin air filter at 20,000 miles. The engine air filter isn't until 30. That's something I'll probably do myself, because that's, easy enough since it's an open air filter, and it's just, I'll do that at 30,000. Other than that, there's nothing else I need to do. In the past, I never really did any of my maintenance myself either, though. On the BRZ and my Legacy and those other, vehicles, the other Mustangs and stuff, I would always just, take them in for the servicing. Because it's just, for me, it always seems like every time I do something, it always takes way longer than it's supposed to, and turns into a headache. And so I'm hopefully a little bit better mechanically now than I was back then, but I don't know. Just something, it's easier for me to pay someone a few bucks to just do it quickly and easily and move on with my day. But it is something, like, the guy who does my oil changes might not be a mechanic forever, and if that comes to a close, instead of trusting the Bullet to some random mechanic, since all the dealerships around here aren't great for Fords, I may start doing my own oil changes in the Bullet someday. So never say never, but for now, I don't bother with it. Thank you so much for the super chat. And so other questions here. So Dom says, so when we see one-off hyper SUVs or crossovers, I called it. Fair enough. And maybe someone will commission something. That's certainly possible. As far as, a one-off thing, maybe there is. But I mean, that mean, they have all these, programs right now, and no one has done it yet. So we will see. Maybe someone will eventually, but yeah, I think the Cullinan is going to be as hyper as you're going to get as far as a crossover, I think, honestly. And Dom says he votes for Type R for Jay. I just think they're more crisp, in my opinion. I think so as well. And MDKN says, I definitely had no excuse to not join this one. I'm literally just sitting at a desk all day doing nothing. Well, I'm happy to provide some entertainment for you there, and sorry about your predicament. Hopefully it passes quickly and you can get out and enjoy your Saturday soon here. And Jeremy, thanks for joining in and saying hi. Dom says, hey, Tom, please suggest a 10th gen SI. I think it's the best in the price range. So 10th gen that's not the new ones, right? If you're talking, like used, something like that. The only thing with the last gen SI is the rev hang's terrible. So I think you got to do a tune to get rid of the rev hang, because I couldn't stand the rev hang on the last gen SI. And the current gen, it's great, but those are 30 grand. So, if he's okay spending that much, then I'd certainly say SI would be way more fun than the Jetta with the 1.5. I just, would have to know what kind of price range Tom's friend's working with there. Jay says, have you decided on different tires for the Bullet yet, or are you still betting on the PS4S? So, as you saw from the update, I am going to do all seasons, but I haven't decided yet. So to be honest, I'm trying to get a partnership with one of these tire companies, because if I'm going to be doing the review of the tire, I'm giving them some promotion. I don't like doing that stuff for free unless, if it's a product I, agree with and believe in, I'm not opposed to giving free promotion, but these tire companies are, very, keen to do partnerships. You see a lot of other YouTube channels doing partnerships with tire companies. So I'm going to at least try to see if I can work out a partnership first. And then if I can't work out, any kind of partnership, then it'll come down to what I feel like spending money on. But I'm not at liberty to say, because there was one tire company I've talked to that may have something that they want me to talk about sometime here late summer, early fall. So I'm hoping potentially to work with them or one other company. If those two things both fall through, then I will have to see what the deals are at that point, because the Michelin, if it were just a blank check and I was just picking, it seems like the Michelin and the Continental are the top two that I've seen. And so it would come down to, which one of those would be, cheaper, but I'd like to stick to Michelin, because that's what the car, came with, even though it's a different type of Michelin. The Michelin tire has been really good to me. Aside from getting the few flats, which isn't Michelin's fault, they've been great tires. They've lasted really long. They've been durable, even beyond their designed usage, with me driving them in the cold a good bit and stuff. So I really am happy with the Michelin. So I'd be happy to stick with them. It just come down to, again, how things play out on the business end of it. So it's still open here. Technically the car won't pass inspection because of that one tire, and the inspection is up on the Bullet in October. So I will have to have new tires on it by October. So that'll be the deadline for when I'm going to either sink or swim with these tire deals. So we'll see what happens. But at least that's the deadline. I will know by October what tires the Bullet's going to have on it next. And I'll, of course, like I said, do a full video on my reviewing of it and my thoughts on it and why I picked it. Not only if it's just because of a partnership, but why I like that tire in general. And so, we'll see how that plays out. But Dom says, I understand what you mean, Matt. Things will always go wrong until you get comfortable. It's missing the follow-up comment there, but thank you so much for being a member for 13 months. He says, oh, Matt, just as your work, Daddy Toyota for tires. Ask your work. Okay, you dropped the K there. Ask your work, Daddy Toyota for tires. Yep, not sponsored by Toyota, but it'd be nice to get some free tires. We'll see what happens. Thanks for being a member for 13 months too. I appreciate that. So MDKN says, I'm making money, so I'm not complaining. Well, that's always a good way to spend your Saturday. If you can hang out, watch YouTube, and get paid for it, that's a good way to go. Triton Car Guy said, let Ferrari and Lamborghini build the SUVs. Yeah, I think they've got the market pretty well covered. Jay says, Matt's 10th gen Civic Si Coupe that's tuned review is still one of my favorite reviews. Okay, nice. Yeah, so 10th gen was the last gen. So thanks for that clarification. Yeah, so for those, yeah, with a tune, much better. But stock that generation, I'm not in love with the rev hang. Hugo, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, "Hope or have you seen the new Taurus that hopefully will return?" I have. I think Goth Rocker was talking about a Taurus recently as well. There's the Chinese stuff, which you got to be careful about. Like some people will take those news stories and then be like, "Aha, look, it's this thing," and it's an official picture, so it seems like likely, but I still don't know. I've been hearing, yeah, there's more and more rumors now about maybe Ford bringing the Taurus back. The last stuff that I heard was them maybe doing a wagon Taurus and having it be a competitor to the Outback. But, I just, I don't know. I still can't imagine Ford going back on their decision and admitting that they were wrong about getting rid of sedans. As a company, I can't see them taking that stance because Ford's one of these companies that always agrees and thinks they're always on the right track. They've never made a mistake. They're always kind of just they're always just 10 out of 10 in their mind. So I don't know. I feel like they've committed to no sedans and I think they will die on that hill. We will see, but I wouldn't hold your breath for a new Taurus here in the States, but I could be wrong. I'd be happy to be wrong. It'd be great to see a sedan come back for them, but yeah, I'm still not convinced on that one. Dom says, of course, Jay, I owned an 18 Accord. Test drive manuals above and below that class. SI just lack power. That is another, yeah, if they're open to use stuff, an Accord with the manual is great too. Just again, some rev hang in the 1.5, have driven the 2.0T manual still. But hopefully the 1.5 with a tune would be another great option if you want something a little more practical. Jeremy, thank you so much for the super chat as well. He says, "Hey, Matt, I'm in the market for a full-size SUV. What's your take on the refreshed Armada QX80 versus the German and American competitors? They are discounting a lot and have a V8. Someone else just asked me in the Grand Highlander video that I posted this week about the Armada, and I mentioned, yeah, like it's 10 grand off or something for an Armada. I mean, I drove the Armada when they did the refresh a couple years back. It's just very old. It's ancient. Same with the QX80. They're super ancient, and there is talk of a new QX80 coming potentially even as soon as this year sometime, according to that dealer convention that they had that I reported on a few weeks back. So that could also be part of the pressure if dealers know that there is new stuff coming and coming quickly. They're trying to clear out that old inventory and they're not fast movers, so it's going to take some time. So you put those discounts on them, hopefully get them cleared out ahead of time. But to me, I struggle to think of another vehicle that would be in last position in that segment than the Armada and the QX80, just because they're I think the oldest in the segment, the worst fuel economy in the segment, most likely the worst packaging as far as how little space you have for how enormous the vehicle is. Handling, I mean, it drives like a 10 or 15-year-old tank, which I mean has appeal to a lot of people. Look at how many people bought the old Sequoias and continue to buy Forerunners and everything like that. So again, if that's your thing, go for it, but just know that's the compromise. And there's a reason why they're discounting them 10 grand. If it was a hot seller because it was awesome, there wouldn't be discounts. The discounts are there because no one wants them. There's probably a good reason why most people don't want them, because everyone kind of can see through the little refresh that it's an ancient vehicle. Safety, I mean, you'll have physics on your side, but safety is also going to be lacking with a very old design like that too. And yeah, you have the V8. So if that's something that you're really into, again, I'm not here to judge. Everyone likes different things, but to me, in my personal ranking, they're dead last compared to the German and American competitors, especially the Americans. If you're looking for a body on frame SUV, I mean, the Americans, obviously the Germans don't really have anything like that, but the Americans, I mean, that's some of their bread and butter. They're based on the pickup trucks, which are, their best sellers. And so, they have a lot more resources to spend a lot more money to make them really good. I was really impressed with the Tahoe and the packaging and how, spacious it is with this new version, having the new rear suspension that it got a few years back. They're really great. I enjoyed the Tahoe that I've had. The Escalade, all those are super impressive. Expedition, I didn't have as much experience with, but that's, from my little driving, that also was really great too. It's, an F-150 with, a third row. It's great. And then, even the Wagoneer, I think the Wagoneer is a little glitchy, and maybe, after the first year bugs, hopefully they will refine it a little bit, but I love the Wagoneer, from a packaging standpoint as well. You have the V8 there in those as well. And again, that's a hot vehicle. It's new and stuff, so you're not going to get the deal on that. But like even someone saying, would you take a Grand Highlander over an Armada or QX80? And if you don't need to tow or you don't need that huge thing where the V8, I'd even take a Grand Highlander in the next segment down over the Armada. You'll have more space in the Grand Highlander than even in the Armada, just because again, it's old. They didn't package it very well, so it's hard for me to like the Armada, especially these days with so many good offerings out there. Even the new, I'd even take the new Sequoia, which, I know it's kind of not a great design on the back there with the cargo space. And, Sequoia isn't particularly spacious either. So I still think the Americans do it better than the Sequoia does, but I'd even happily take a Sequoia over the Armada for sure. Just, so much more modern and it feels like a new thing and not like something that's, ancient. But again, people love the ancient stuff, but personally, I don't love the ancient stuff. So for me, Armada is definitely the last pick. So that's my unfiltered opinion on it. But again, feel free to test drive one yourself, see what you think. You might love it. And if the deal works and it's, what you're looking for, by all means, go for it. But I think if you see huge discounts on stuff, usually there's a good reason most of the time. And likewise, when you see stuff that's marked up, there's usually a good reason for that as well. Sometimes it's irrational in the beginning because it's just new and hot. But if you see consistent demand and high demand for a lot of these things, there's usually a good reason. It's usually because it's a really good vehicle and everyone kind of has come to that consensus and wants it. Dom says Ford sounds like Subaru with the comment about them always making the right decisions in their mind. Yeah, I would agree with that statement as well. Jay says the Grand Highlander review or the My Week with video deserve a lot more views. Did you notice any afterthoughts with the rear ceiling vents rather than from the back of the center console? So as far as, Beth was commenting about that in that interior review there. And I think that it is really nice to have vents lower, just because I feel like the ceiling stuff, it works okay, but they're not huge vents. I mean, it's decent, and you're gonna have the front pumping air too, and it's one of those temporary problems that's just annoying for the first few minutes, and then once you get going and everything gets cooled down, then there's usually no more complaints. So it's not something I would consider a deal breaker ever, but I do prefer the crossovers that have multiple vents coming from multiple directions and angles to make things a little bit cooler. But I appreciate about the video deserving more views. I'm actually surprised. I don't know if any of you have looked back, but the Grand Highlander week with video that I posted just on Thursday has been like taking off on views. It's bizarre. It's so funny because like sometimes I don't even know how. I would desperately love to figure out how, but sometimes I hit the SEO jackpot where like if you just Google Grand Highlander right now and you scroll down to the video part of Google, it's like the number one thing that's being pushed right now on Google. I have no clue why. There's nothing special about it. I didn't do anything that I know of to make it rank super high from Google. And I don't know if that's temporary or what, but I mean, that Grand Highlander video is pulling in as views as quickly as the Integra video did. It's doing even better than the Camaro video and all the traditional things that would get good views on my channel. And I would love for someone to dive into the SEO and figure out how I can repeat that, because it'd be really nice. It would definitely help the channel a lot. But that video is doing phenomenally well, thankfully, and it's rubbing off on the interior review and stuff, which is great. So really happy to see the channel's starting to actually kind of have a little bit of an upswing. I'm starting to see views consistently higher for the reviews. The weekly updates are still doing terribly, but the reviews are actually starting to do better on a more consistent basis. And I'm really hoping I'm turning this ship around and getting things actually to a better place and, not being on a sinking ship anymore as far as views go. So fingers crossed things continue to look up here, because I desperately want to keep doing this forever if I can. Let me see. So Dom says 2.0 Accord has bad rev hang. Okay, SI felt better. I was never able to find a Accord 2.0 T manual enthusiast to compare notes. Interesting. Well, that's unfortunate to hear about the rev hang. I mean, I guess I could have assumed that based on the 1.5, but it's a shame to hear that it had that. I don't know if you ever did a tune on yours, Dom, but I'm hoping, I know there was a tune for the 1.5s and the SIs to get rid of that. I don't know if there was ever anything for the 2.0s available to you, but hopefully that's something that can be fixed with a tune, because that's unfortunate that they kind of ruin a great manual experience with rev hang. Triton Car Guy says, Nissan spent all their time on the Rogue and the Pathfinder and forgot about the Armada. Yeah, well, they also have to go where the volume is. The volume is Rogue and Pathfinder from a sales standpoint. Even for the big time car companies that do really good body on frame stuff, it's still usually not one of their top sellers. They usually sell, I mean, Chevy sells way more Equinoxes than Suburbans and stuff like that. So it's just going where the money is. And Goth Rocker says Ford and Lincoln are seriously considering offering two cars in America. They are spending a lot of money designing them and manufacturing them for global markets anyway. Will help their cafe numbers. Yeah, I can see that for sure. And you could also argue that they should bring back the Fiesta and the Focus if they're worried about their cafe numbers as well. I think that Ford's hope for the cafe numbers is just more EVs. That's what they're doing. They're doing everything that's more and more electric instead of trying to do some type of efficient gas thing. I think they know that ship has sailed, at least for them mentally. Again, we will see. Things can change, but I would love to be wrong. But I still just cannot. I can't buy that they are still going to bring sedans back. We will see, though. I hope you're right, Goth Rocker, and those others out there that think that. I really hope I'm wrong. I would love to be wrong, but well, yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. And two, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, Matt, why is my video doing so well? Toyota and Google business daddies. Yeah. And I honestly wondered if Toyota was pushing it, but it's not, because I looked into it and it's not always just Toyota videos. There's some others where Google just picks up on some type of metadata that they like, and it ends up getting boosted straight to the top of the list for Google. I have no clue why, but yeah, I would love to be able to hire an SEO expert to investigate and do some kind of advanced analysis on how that happened. But I'm stumped currently. So it's not someone sponsoring it, and it's not anything that I'm consciously doing. So whatever it is, I'm not complaining, but it's just funny. Hugo says, I still wouldn't pay $100,000 for a Jeep. Yeah, it's tough to swallow that pill, but a lot of people are doing it. It seems more and more people these days. And it's crazy how many people, I mean, even just Wranglers. I mean, the amount of money people spend on Wranglers for what you get, unless you are going off-roading on a good regular basis. Again, everyone likes something different, but it is insane the amount of money people are paying for Wranglers, especially now in PA. They only ship 4xEs because we're part of the not just cafe. We're part of the California, the CARB standards is the word I was looking for. And so for the CARB states, you have to custom order a regular gas Wrangler now. So all the Wranglers around here now are 4xEs, and it's, $7,000 more expensive, whatever I mentioned in my review video, but it's not cheap, and people are just happily just paying their $60,000 for their Wrangler with cloth seats. And I'm like, all right, you do you, but it's wild stuff. Trucking Car Guy says the Suburban has been around for 80 years for a reason. Very true. And when you have 80 years of experience and 80 years of customers coming back and all that expertise, it's really tough to beat, Chevy and Ford and even Jeep at kind of their own game, with, Ram doing stuff for years and years too. And Jeremy says, yeah, all the new ones are expensive, easily 80 to 90 grand MSRP for a well-equipped one. With those Jeeps, it's crazy. And Suburbans as well. It's crazy. All this stuff's getting crazy expensive. And Rafi says, yeah, the Sequoia, pricing and the trunk are the main faults of it. Yeah, trunk especially. It's unfortunate because it's a really solid package, and I hope they do a Sequoia L that maybe gives them some extra space there, or they do a non-hybrid Sequoia so that you can have, like the battery pack go away or something like they've kind of, decided to do here with the new Lexus GX. I think it was a great decision. And then have the hybrid option for people that don't mind that compromise, but at least don't force that compromise on people, that don't want it. And Garth Auger says, Matt, you usually get to talk to the engineers. Why is the rear cargo area so weird in the Toyota Sequoia? I don't get how they couldn't do that better. The Japanese are usually great at packaging. It's just that hybrid battery pack, and I don't know why they couldn't put the battery pack somewhere else. But that's my understanding, is it's just they couldn't. The battery pack had to be under that third row, which meant that third row slides, and that was the best they could do there. But as far as you can't get rid of that little hump there for whatever reason. And so, yeah, I don't know. I think it was just the battery pack is the problem, because like I said, the GX doesn't have that problem. So I think that's really what it comes down to. So they just need to ditch the hybrid thing in the Sequoia, and then you solve that problem. Or The only other way would be to go back and completely redesign the vehicle, where you can, have the battery pack in a different location, or you raise the whole vehicle up an extra 2 inches so that you level out that area. Something like that. It's just, yeah, but it's a shame that Sequoia isn't better packaged with that. And Andrea, thank you so much for the very generous super chat. He says, "Hey Matt, wondering if you or anyone knows what is going on with the Integra Type S orders. I haven't heard any new developments about Integra Type S orders. The only thing I can say just from my previous research on them is that they do build them in batches. So they build them in color batches particularly. So you'll have, a whole run of white cars, and then they'll build some other stuff in the Acura lineup, and then they'll do another run of blue cars or whatever. And so there's maybe some of that that's delaying stuff a little bit. As far as, I don't know if you have any follow-up questions, I'll look for them. You don't have to do any more super chats if you don't want, but I'll try and see if you have any follow-ups about more context there. But as far as I know, they're sticking to the plan and building, whatever Toyota or whatever Honda will give them. And it's just a matter of fighting dealers and finding a dealer that's, not going to price gouge you. But I haven't heard of any other stuff. If there's any other drama going on behind the scenes, definitely fill me in and I'll be happy to weigh in. But I haven't heard any other stuff. Excuse me. So let me see here. And also, Goth Rocker, if you want, I can also someday, next time I run into the Toyota truck crew, I can ask them if there's more clarification about the Sequoia, but I think that's been pretty well covered, that it's just the battery pack there. But Rafi says, I also was surprised that the MPG wasn't great for the Max. For if you mean in the hybrid Max or you're talking hybrid Max for Sequoia or Grand Highlander, I'm not sure. But I mean, I think they all do, better fuel economy than the regular V8 stuff. But in the Sequoia especially, it's like you really don't save much on gas going for that. So it's kind of an interesting choice. They made all those compromises, and didn't really get much gain there. Jay says, same with your 2017 Type R video. First Type R review video. I rewatch it a lot. You deserve a lot more recognition of views. Thank you. I appreciate that, Jay. Yeah, that one was a real perfect setup where I, hadn't had any connection to Honda at that point. So I didn't have any opportunity to do any kind of review early or go in the press launch or anything. And it was just a really nice owner that had a brand new Type R that offered to meet up. And I went out there and did it. And, it was great. And, same kind of thing with the Chrysler 300C video I just did. That, went to like 160,000 views in a couple of weeks because it was just, no one else has a review out there. And anytime I can beat someone to the punch like that, and if there's no competition, it's like the good old days before all the other, bigger channels were out there where I could get 100,000 views on a Camry video without even trying. It's just these days it's a lot more competitive. So Dom says heat rises, so it's better to have cold airflow from top down. Heat is vice versa. Having vents in the middle is most ideal for airflow, least ideal for vehicle designs. Yeah, well, it definitely makes sense as far as the vent positioning there. And, and it's also considerations as far as, just the packaging and the choices made elsewhere in the vehicle. Like, I don't know this for a fact because I didn't ask about it, but with Grand Highlander, you have that rolling cover for the center armrest. So obviously that roller has to go somewhere, and you still have that nice big, cubby. So where's the roller going to go? If it's not going to go into the cubby, then it's going to go behind the cubby, effectively meaning that you wouldn't have functioning air vents if that was open. So you couldn't put them in there and then say, we can only use them if the thing's closed, because that wouldn't be very polished. So I think that was the design. They were like, we would rather have this slide backwards than have a traditional lid that lifts up like everyone else who has the vents in there. So that was their choice. And so it's just coming down to, I guess, what they think is best or what they think their buyers want the most. Maybe they surveyed Highlander owners on like, do you care if it's in the ceiling or in the console? And maybe they got some feedback there that made them, make that decision. But I think in Grand Highlander, it's just physically not possible because of that sliding center console that opens up there. Maybe they could put it very low on the floor or something, but I think that was the restriction there. Most likely is my bet, but again, I'm not saying 100% for sure if that's the case or not. And Raphael says, hello all, had to pick up my sushi, but I'm here. Thanks for joining us. And sushi sounds good. It's been far too long since I've had some sushi. Hope you enjoyed, Raphael, and thanks for joining in. Hugo says, hey Matt, are you ever going to review a Bugatti? I see that blue toy Bugatti there behind you. Yep. That was a lot of fun doing that partnership with Lego a few years back. I would love to review a Bugatti. No one has ever offered one, and probably no one ever will. But it would be a dream come true to review a Bugatti. That would be so much fun, so wild. That would be an incredible experience. I've never even sat in a Bugatti, so that would be even just sitting in one. It'd be like me being a teenager again, be like, "Ooh, I'm sitting in like a dream car." You know, it'd be really fun. But unfortunately, I've seen Chirons and Veyrons in person, but never even sat in one. It'd be awesome to drive one someday. So let me go back to some other questions here that I might have missed. So Ted says, why do you think the Chrysler 300 video blew up? Okay, so I kind of mentioned that with not having any kind of competition there. Did I think it would go that high in views? I did have an inkling that it would be a hot video. There's been a few times I'm starting to really listen to my gut more when it comes to opportunities. And whenever there's something that, I know for like with that one, there was no press cars in the fleet. There was no media drive for that car, but there's demand for it. And it's right up my viewers alley. Some of my most popular videos on this channel are the Hellcats, any Charger Challenger, any Mopar thing usually does really well on this channel. And so I knew, I had that built-in fan base for the Mopar stuff, and no one else had a video really out there that was a larger YouTuber at least. And no one was probably going to have a video for a while. And then whenever that video started having the velocity it had, whenever I'm seeing that it's getting, 1,000 views an hour or something, and it continues to keep up that momentum, that's when I can tell kind of on momentum a lot of times when things are going to keep going. And I was like, okay, well, this one, after the first day or so, I'm like, this will definitely hit 100,000 views. And then beyond there, it's always kind of a guessing game, but I can usually tell when something's going to be super hot. And the Camaro video is another one that I saw that pop up at Harrison Autos in their inventory. And I'm like, all right, I need to find some way to clear out 3 hours in my schedule someday to get that video filmed fast, because again, LT1's a little bit old news. It's not quite as exciting as the 300C, which is why video isn't doing quite as well as the 300C one did. But that was another one where it's like, hey, I know a lot of you love muscle cars. I have a lot of people that, love that on this channel, and cheap enthusiast stuff is the bread and butter of this channel. That's what I know a lot of you love. It's the cheapest thing with a V8, in the muscle car segment. It's fun. It's bare bones. It just focuses on the performance and nothing else. And again, no one else is really covering, those. And I wanted to do a farewell video of the Camaro as well. So that was another reason, but I knew that one would be worth doing. And so far it's performing pretty well. It's, again, not hitting the SEO jackpot like, that Grand Highlander video, but it's doing really well with, the subscribers and all that. And so that's kind of, one of those ones too. But the algorithm is strange, but I think with the 300C video, that one was just mass appeal because there was no coverage on it from anybody that had actually driven it yet. And again, just having that built-in Mopar audience that, those people that maybe even if they hadn't watched one of my videos since the Hellcat I've reviewed a few years back, maybe YouTube would be like, aha, well, here's another Mopar thing. Let's put it into their feed. And it just kind of took off from there, So I think YouTube, as much as the algorithm gets a lot of crap, I think the algorithm, it's not perfect, and it has definitely screwed me in many ways, but I think that it is pretty intelligent about pairing up the videos that people actually want to watch with what's out there. And, I don't always buy YouTube's excuse of, oh, just make videos your viewers will love, because I do make stuff like that. And a lot of times it still bombs. But I think they do a pretty good job of figuring out what you guys want to see and recommending the right videos most of the time. I'd be curious to hear if you guys agree or disagree, but from what I've seen, it seems like the recommendations are pretty good there. Oh, and Jeremy, thank you so much for gifting the memberships. I really appreciate that. Sorry, my feed wasn't loading here, so I missed that till now. But thanks so much for the generosity, Jeremy. I really appreciate it. And congrats to those of you that were able to snap up those memberships there. And Hugo, thank you so much for being a member now for 3 months. He says 3 months going strong. I just saw some pics on the new Triton, not in America, unfortunately. Yeah, there's so many fun things we don't get here in the States, unfortunately. And let me see. So other questions from members here. So MDKN says, you good there, Matt? Drink some water. Yeah, I got my drink here. Just trying to keep on talking and not having too many lulls here. And let me see. So Dom says, still no luck with Turo, Matt. Turo is totally an option. Turo in Pittsburgh doesn't have a ton of great options though. And also, especially these days, again, unless it is something that I'm convinced is going to do big views, it'll almost certainly lose me money. And I kind of found this out whenever I did the I did the Tesla Model S P100D video. I needed a rental car because I was going down for a wedding, and it was, some of it was a personal trip as well. So I needed a rental car though, and I was like, well, I might as well rent something on Turo, and I did that one. And obviously, it was more expensive than renting, something more ordinary. But I was like, well, Teslas are really hot. It'd be a really fun reaction because it's insanely fast. I'm like, this has potential to maybe do well. So spend hundreds of dollars to rent that Model S on Turo, and I don't think that rental even paid for itself with the video. I think the video probably made less than a few $100. So, that's the real tricky thing when you're paying for the cars that you're reviewing. It's tough, and I've even struggled with that with some of the reviews that are offered to me in other places. I mean, obviously, no one that offers their vehicles expects me to pay them for filming their car, but even just the gas money and just the trip, and especially if it's something that requires a hotel stay, and if I'm having to spend between gas and hotels, a couple $100, if the video doesn't do well, I will actually lose money on that because it's YouTube doesn't pay as much as some people think whenever you do the low views like that. So it's really, again, a business decision. And if there's money involved where I need to pay for an opportunity, most of the time I will turn it down just because I have so many great free opportunities that even if it's opportunities that aren't quite as good, if I can get it for free, then it's, I'm going to end up coming out ahead more certainly than if it's something that I'm taking a risk on and paying for. So that's why I don't do Turo stuff. But again, if it is the right car, I will take a chance potentially. But I haven't even looked at Turo in probably at least 6 or 9 months to even see what's on there right now. And Trenton Cargo says, once I get some issues sorted out, I'll figure out a time to bring the Magnum to you. I appreciate that. That'd be awesome. I also can meet up halfway, if it's something, because obviously I don't want to have people driving multi-day trips just to meet up or anything. So we'll try and figure something out there once it's all ready to go. Thanks for offering, Truck and Car Guy. 2 says, hey Matt, I have connections to a Fast and Furious Super replica. Would you review it? But with the only stipulation is to roast the heck out of it. Oh, I couldn't roast it. I love it. I mean, look, I have the model down there. I would be just like trying not to pee my pants the whole time I'm driving. I'd be so excited. So that's awesome. You have a connection to one. I would love the hookup there. I mean, I'm assuming it's probably not, nearby. I believe you're in California. I don't remember too, but I would love to review a super replica. That would be a dream. That would be right up there for the DeLorean time machine. So send me an email about that one if that's something you'd like to seriously pursue, and I will at least keep it on my wait list if I'm ever in LA or wherever you happen to be and have some free time. Man, I would really try my hardest to find some time to review that if I'm ever in California next. It's a very exciting proposition. Thanks to Hugo says the new Traverse really impressed me. Got to say, Chevy's walking the walk. Very interesting how the new Acadia is going to look. Yeah, I'm excited to see what they do with the Acadia. Traverse seems pretty solid. I think there's a few odd exclusions. Like I think I was watching one video on it. It seems like it doesn't have cooled seats, which would be a weird miss for that segment. So I don't know. I got to do a little more research on the Traverse, and hopefully when I get one to review at some point down the road, I'll be able to have a better opinion on the Traverse and have more info on it then. But it seems like a really nice improvement for sure. And we will see how they price it. That's always the bottom line. Chevys in the past, they've been overpriced, but then they're like, oh, but wait, we'll give you 10% off or whatever. And they do all these deals all the time. But from a reviewer standpoint, I got to judge it based on its MSRP. So we will see if they get the MSRP right on the Chevy or not. But yeah, Traverse seems like a really solid option. Jean says, sorry for being late. Just finished a timing belt and oil pump job on my mother's Honda Pilot V6. Thanks for joining in, and that's awesome. You're able to do that for her. That's awesome. You're more mechanically inclined than myself, so that's impressive. You're able to do all that, and hopefully it wasn't too much trouble. But thanks for joining in. Goth Rocker says the new videos are out of the 2024 Mustang. Not sure if you watched any thoughts. I think it's interesting that they wanted to go with the more futuristic look, but I like the 15 to 23 era you have. Yeah, so I believe the 24th is when the embargo is dropping on the driving part, but yeah, they have the tour videos that they've posted pre-embargo. So I haven't watched any of them. I've already kind of, I got to see the Mustang in person, and, I know all the info on it. And I've talked to some people that have driven it, so I can't say anything, because that's all under embargo. But I'm hoping to get a chance to, give my own impression on the new Mustang. I'm still bummed that Ford, didn't invite me, and I don't know when I'll get to review one, because I know not only just because I feel like the Bullet has been a real big part of the channel for a long time, and I've given a lot of promotion to the Bullet over the years, but also just I know I have a lot of people that are actually curious about my thoughts on it, and it's unfortunate I'm not gonna be able to give those thoughts maybe till next year, because they're really slow with the press fleet around here. So for at least the Ford stuff. So we will see when I get to review one, if ever. I'd never had a chance to even do the Mach 1 because they never would send it to me. So I don't know. Ford's weird, but yeah, I will give an objective review regardless, because Ford still does some great products, even though they're a pain to work with. They do some good products. So we will see. I'll give my objective review whenever I someday get a chance to. And two says you have to roast it. Then no deal. I can't roast one of my dream childhood cars. It's that would be completely impossible for me. And let me see some other questions here. Slamming Gears with David says something is going on at GM, and what do you think about the new Traverse design? I think the design's great. I think it's totally fine. And GM, they do make some interesting decisions for sure, but I think as far as the Traverse goes, I don't see any, problems with it, aside from, again, maybe not having cooled seats or one or two other things. And Red says, sorry, will super manuals ever be reasonably available? I don't know. I mean, I didn't know that they were super hard to come by. I feel like super demand has kind of chilled out a little bit. So especially if you place an order and find a dealer that's not ridiculous, hopefully you can get, a manual super to MSRP without too much trouble. If that's not the case, I'm out of the loop on that. But I feel like there's been some out there. I'd have to look on Auto Trader and stuff and see. But yeah, haven't heard of any issues with manual Supra's availability. And Raphael says, I like the outside of the new Mustang, but not on the inside. I'd still rather have a Mach 1. Yeah, same thoughts here. Rafi says, I feel like I definitely see more Supras than 86s. Interesting. I think nowadays, I think I've seen more new GR86s than Supras, but it's not by much. I'd say it's pretty close to neck and neck around here, at least. Jeremy says, will Toyota ever make a 2.0 manual Supra? It should be really light and fun to drive. I think because no one's buying the automatic 2.0 Supras, they won't bother with any more investment in that car. They have the parts. They already have a 2.0 manual with the Z4. They could bring that right over, or even, obviously, if the 6-cylinder manual bolts up to the 4-cylinder, which I'm not sure it does, but I would assume that it should. And if it's rated for, the 6-cylinder power, then you can just swap it right in without any changes, and it should be potentially okay. But I think it's just, if the 2-liter Supra ended up being a good success for them, they probably would have done more with it. But I think if they can't move them, then they're just going to let it die on the vine and, probably get rid of it sooner rather than later, which is a shame, because like I said, I thought it was a great car. It's just that no one's giving it a chance, and it is expensive for the amount of horsepower per dollar. So if that's your goal there, then obviously you're better off in a muscle car. But, it was a little bit harder to justify than the, overachiever with that 3-cylinder, the 6-cylinder version, the 3-liter, than the regular Supras. I mean, those are just so fast, and a lot more exciting for not that much more money, relatively speaking. So it is a tough sell. But now, especially if you can get a better deal on a 2.0 Supra than a 3.0, and you want something that's a premium 86 or BRZ with more power and a turbo, I still think it's a great solution for that, conundrum. Two says, I think they need to shorten the 2.9 Supra, make some visual differences, and call it a Celica. That'd be fun. That'd be fun to see some type of Celica. I'd love to see a front-wheel drive sporty thing from Toyota as well, and get back to the, sport compact stuff instead. I mean, obviously, I love the GR Corolla's all-wheel drive. I love the rear-wheel drive of the 86. And the Supra, but I feel like that was kind of, obviously they have that heritage of all those other things, but they also had a real strong heritage of fun front wheel drive stuff. And I'd love to see some type of Civic Si competitor. I mean, you have, again, the regular Corolla with the manual, but they never gave it more power, and now the manual is gone in the Corolla. So I still would love to see a Celica, or I don't know, something else even. I don't know. It'd just be great to see something like that again. Um, and Truck and Car Guy says, I've also noticed more Supers than 86s in my area as well. Interesting. Okay, well, that's good to see. The Supers are proliferating the area where you guys are at. It's still not that common around here, unfortunately. Raphael said, I finally had a chance to drive my friend's Tesla Model S. That thing is fast. I just can't do the looks. Yeah, totally can, understand the the lack of appeal with the Tesla styling there. But yeah, they're impressive cars for sure. And let me see. So other questions here. I'm going to get to some of the other non-member questions. And Greg thinks the Santa Fe looks like a home run to him. Yeah, we will see. I'll be very curious to see how sales play out for that. Kyle says, I'm on the fence over a 23 Stinger all-wheel drive GT2 or waiting on a Dark Horse 24 Mustang. I'm 6'6", and I've heard the seats on the Mustang are lower with a flat bottom steering wheel. Thoughts? Stinger doesn't have a ton of headroom either. Mustang, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how you feel about the Challenger, but if you want muscle, that'd probably be the most accommodating one for someone that's as tall as you are. Beyond that, I mean, Mustangs, though, I mean, they do a really good job of designing them for, a wide variety of sizes. So I would like to think that you'd probably feel more comfortable in the Mustang than the Stinger. Certainly, if you can, try and sit in some kind of Stinger and some kind of 2024 Mustang just to see for yourself. But yeah, the flat bottom wheel would probably help you in the Mustang there. And I mean, the Stinger has that as well. But I don't know about the seats being lower. I don't know where you've heard that. I haven't watched any of the videos, so you could be completely right. I haven't heard that myself. But if the seats are in fact lower in the Mustang now than what they were, then that could certainly help you for sure. But that's going to be tough. I feel like neither of those cars are great on headroom. So yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to think of something else to even suggest because, all the muscle cars are going to be kind of tight aside from the Challenger. I'd say like M2 or something like that could probably be a little bit better on headroom, a little more livable. But yeah, that's pretty much it, I think. I definitely, hopefully you can sit in one. Hopefully it fits you okay, but it might still not be super comfortable for the Mustang because you do sit up pretty high in Mustangs. So they'd have to lower the seat by a lot to make it feel good. You might honestly, this is a crazy thing to say, but because of how low you sit in an 86 and a BRZ, I don't know if you're open to those cars at all. I know it's completely off from those two, but those actually, I think, have pretty decent headroom for how small they are, and they're a ton of fun too. But yeah, you'll have to just sit and see. Unfortunately, I don't have a good input there, Kyle. Sorry. And let me see here. So Goth Rocker says, I've seen more Miatas than BRZs. I see more BRZ than 86s, and I see more 86s than Supras, but ultimately I see more Mustangs and Challengers, than all four of the Japanese cars combined. Yeah, same here. Only one New Z so far. Yeah, I think I might have seen one New Z as well. That's about it. Those have been the rarest of the bunch, most likely because of the Nissan dealers. Yeah, it's good to see. I can see a decent amount of Miatas running around my area as well. MDKN says it's a little different in my area. I see Supers quite often, but 86s are very few. Weirdly enough, it's the complete opposite when we talk dealership inventory. Huh. So interesting. Yeah, that is kind of surprising. So funny how things are different in different areas. Two says, what platform would you like to see the Celica be based on? I mean, they could just use the Corolla platform. I think that'd be fine. And you could have a variety of engines would work with that. You could also, if you want to make it bigger, make a two-door Camry out of it, basically, and just do something like that. That could work. Again, we're talking about two doors that no one buys, so we might as well be talking about streets paved of gold or something. But it's just I think that could be fun, and it wouldn't be super expensive. It's just that no one would buy them, so it'd be a waste of money no matter how little they spend on it. But yeah, that'd be I think any front-wheel drive platform would do just fine, I think, in the Toyota portfolio. Truck and Car Guy said, well, I can appreciate the technology in a Tesla, personally not my thing, and not a huge fan of Elon either. Yeah, that's certainly becoming more and more divisive, and so it's something that wasn't a thing, even a year ago, and now there's a lot more of that for sure. And let me see here. So Super Steve says, hey Matt, how do you compare the TLX Type S versus Integra Type S in terms of driving experience, livability, etc., other than having a manual? What makes the TLX worth the extra money than the Integra? The TLX is going to be better for someone who just wants the most stuff, who wants, cooled seats, who wants a heated steering wheel, who wants, I guess you can heat a steering wheel as a dealer option in the Integra, but you want the extra comfort. The TLX is still really good handling, but it's going to be just a little plusher. You're sitting up higher. It's actually, I would have to compare them back to back, but I actually think that the Integra probably has more legroom because the TLX is not great on legroom, unfortunately. And the hatch is so usable in the Integra as well. I think you actually have more usable space than you get in the trunk of the TLX too. So I would say actually livability is better in the Integra than the TLX. It's just going to come down to, do you want that bigger car that has a few more speakers, that has the bigger screen, has the controller, which livability wise, I'd rather have the touchscreen in the Integra as well. So to me, it's just going to come down to someone who, I think TLX is for someone who says, well, I don't want to pay 50 grand for a 4-cylinder, which I saw tons of those comments. And if you have that opinion, that's fine. For those people, I would say, yes, that is what the TLX Type S is for. You have your comfy cruiser, you have all the extra stuff you're expecting, all the luxury features, and you have that extra power. You got that twin turbo V6, which is more worthy than a lot of people's minds of that $50,000 price tag. And so it's just two very different buyers and what their goals are. I mean, TLX Type S is a great handler, but it's still not going to have the engagement of the Integra. TLX Type S is really good. I mean, I said it had mind-blowing handling in my review, and I still back that up. The steering is, I think, the best steering outside of an Alfa Romeo Giulia. I mean, it is fantastic. I love the TLX Type S. But I really think it is going to be manual, hatch, and just low seating position and the low weight. And so it's just going to come down to, again, how you feel about, the price tag of both of them. And what, if you feel like you're getting ripped off in an Integra, then you'll get the TLX, and still a great car. It's just, again, very different personalities. And I think they appeal to different personalities for their drivers as well. So hopefully that helps you with the distinctions there, but they're both great cars. Let me see. So Kyle says, as the number one Super Dirks fan, do you ever see yourself owning another? Being my height is tough. I appreciate the input. WRX is very, it's fine. It's fine. I think, as much as I love manuals, I think there's just so many really good automatic options at that price point in that size segment that I think it's only for someone who will not move on must have a manual and wants good power and decent size, an all-wheel drive, manual and all-wheel drive. If those two things are non-negotiables for you, the WRX is a great choice, and it's still great for that purpose. But if you are open to anything, then that's whenever your horizons expand greatly, and there's a lot more things out there that I think are better values. I love the WRX still. My buddy actually just bought one a few weeks ago because he is one of those guys who must have a manual no matter what, and must have all-wheel drive no matter what. So, your options are pretty limited. He wasn't into the GR Corolla, and of course it's, it's really hard to get one of those as well. But I don't want to spoil it because the members know what is coming, but I will say that a GR Corolla review is eventually coming. And, it just, I think if it were me, I would go through all the hoops that I need to go through to try and get a GR Corolla at sticker. And then, I'd much rather pay 40 grand for that than 40 grand for a loaded WRX that still doesn't even have leather seats. And has just, the GR Corolla is way more fun, way more power. It has the switchable all-wheel drive system that the STI used to have, which appeals to the Subaru fan in me. The Toyota has it, the Subaru doesn't anymore. So yeah, I think that at least where I live right now, if I move to a place that gets snow 8 or 9 months out of the year and it's horrible, then maybe I'd consider one. But I honestly think if it were me paying that kind of money, I'd rather have a Mazda 3 Turbo all-wheel drive and just deal with not having a manual. It's a way nicer car. You have more torque, way more torque than the WRX, a way nicer, more refined vehicle that looks better as well, and so there's just, there's a lot of stuff like that too. I'd rather have Integra or something like that, the Type S, or, there's just so many other things that I'd rather have. Used stuff, I'd rather have like a G70 all-wheel drive, for the same money, used, just there's a lot of stuff. I have a whole laundry list of cars I'd rather have over a WRX, honestly. So unfortunately, just no, to me, Subaru did not make it compelling enough. And I was hoping for the STI to be more exciting, and then they didn't do it. So, yeah, I think it's really just for the person who must have a manual and all-wheel drive. If you're open to other things, there's much better stuff out there, sadly. It makes me sad to say that because, yes, I was a Subaru fan, but I've just seen how they've watered it down and gone their own way and not listened to what their buyers actually want with the hideous cladding and all that stuff, and having less rear bumper paint than a Crosstrek, even the new Crosstrek. And I will keep shouting that from the rooftops as long as I need to. It's just ridiculous that you have less cladding on a Crosstrek than you have on a WRX. It's just bizarre to me. But anyway, I'm not going to go on that soapbox again. But yes, not much of a WRX fan anymore. They're fine cars, but there's just better stuff these days. Jeremy, thank you so much for being a member for 15 months. I really appreciate that. He said, just did some research and found the Wagoneers are also discounted a lot too. Get a Series 3 under 70. Wow, that's a great discount. Okay, well, in that case, yeah, I mean, that could be a really solid option then. Again, be careful with the bugginess of those screens. If you're not cool with buggy screens, I mean, the screens were a little glitchy in the Wagoneer. Hopefully with software updates and stuff, it will get better because everything else seems to be pretty solid in those vehicles. But yeah, I love the Wagoneer. If you can get one on a discount now, great buy. I thought they were still being marked up. So that's awesome. If you can get discounts, really another solid buy, especially over the Armada. Let me see other questions here. Raphael says, I haven't seen a Z and haven't seen a Miata in years, but half the people around Cleveland seem to have either a Supra or a G86. Well, that's great to hear. Goth Rocker says, my problem with Tesla, I feel, is the interior is just not nice and not my thing, especially for the price. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's lacking in the Teslas that Tesla fans are fine to do without, I guess, but a lot of other people aren't. Hey, Silva, thanks so much for becoming a member and rejoining. Again, I really appreciate that. Truck and Car Guy said, so who will be the next company to join the Tesla Charger Parade? Yeah, it's every week there's a new one. This week was Nissan. We'll see what next week is. But they'll all fall in line eventually, I'm sure. Garth Orger says, I'm not a believer in EVs. Not for me. I hope Toyota pushes the hydrogen fuel cell. I think that's our best bet if we have to get rid of the internal combustion engine. I love gas engines. Yeah, and it's gonna be a long time before things change over. And as we're seeing, there's some uncertainty now if the EV ramp up as fast as it has been going, with Volkswagen slowing down production and things like that, because there's still a lot of holdups, and with the slightest economic setback, that's going to push people into lower priced vehicles, and EVs are still a premium thing. So, there's still a lot of challenges there. I think we'll get there eventually. The hydrogen thing, I think, is a great idea. I think hydrogen could be the ultimate destination after the EV phase. I think EVs will kind of probably be the transition thing. And if battery technology advances, maybe it will stay the thing. But, I think the problem with hydrogen is just infrastructure. People cry about the EV infrastructure, which is actually pretty good with, now between Tesla and the CCS networks. I mean, you're talking almost 25,000 chargers out there. And I don't even think there's 100 hydrogen stations in the country. So, I mean, it's just, there's no way unless someone comes up with an invention to make hydrogen like free and like insanely easily abundant. I mean, I just don't see any way they would put that kind of money behind hydrogen for a long time. Maybe for trucks and stuff, but for passenger vehicles, there's just right now the packaging, you have to have these huge tanks and stuff. It's just there. I think the technology is just not there yet for hydrogen. Unfortunately, it has promise, but for now, I think it's way far off, way far off. And it's a shame, but I think EVs are a lot of fun and they're going to keep getting better too. But again, I respect everyone has different, opinions and feelings on that. But I think that's the way we're headed, whether we like it or not, eventually. Again, don't clutch your pearls and worry just yet. But I think eventually that is going to be the way things are going to go. Let me see. I see MDKN's comment there. And Goth Walker says Mazdas are really impressive. In my opinion, they have some of the best looking SUVs. I still rather see a new Mazda 6 with all-wheel drive. Yeah, I hope they do a new Mazda 6 someday. They said that they'd like to make one. It's just they said tell people to buy sedans again. That's what I was talking to the chief powertrain engineer of Mazda and saying, I'd love to see this motor in a sedan. He's like, me too. He wants to do it too. It just, they can't bankrupt the company. So they got to just do what sells. And Mazda 6 just wasn't selling. That's why they killed it off. They didn't have to kill it off as soon as they did. It just was a waste of time to sell it here with them selling as few as they did, so it's just, it's a shame, but hopefully someday it comes back. And Heyo says New Century will have 300 horsepower and all-wheel drive. That'd be amazing. I wouldn't hold your breath for that, but that'd be fun if they did. Let me see. So Greg says fuel cells pretty much an EV, just uses hydrogen instead of the battery, just way slower. Yeah, I mean, some companies like Toyota's also experimenting with combusting the hydrogen, whereas there's a race series where there's a GR Corolla running around that's burning hydrogen. But it's just so inefficient to burn the hydrogen with this massive tank. It's just way less power dense than gasoline. So again, kind of a technological hurdle there. Kyle says, I'm totally with you on the way Subaru handled things. Yeah, it's a shame, but I mean, maybe it's the discounts they're offering on WRXs, because like my buddy got $2,000 off of his, and I know there's others getting discounts on them, and they're plentiful on lots, so that helps the sales. I mean, they're selling well, and so to me, that's just going to reinforce the Subaru that they did the right thing, putting tons of cladding on the WRX. They did the right thing in their mind, doing what they did with the engine and nixing the STI and all that. Like in their mind, they did the right thing. And so, it's just, unfortunately, the sales are backing that up. And, maybe we're the minority that, is crazy, and everyone else is, you just thinks differently. But I mean, I've seen a lot of people that agree with us, Kyle, and it's, I don't get it, but Subaru doesn't like listening to feedback very well. So, they're going to do their thing, and we'll just sit back and watch. Elijah, thanks so much for rejoining as well. I really appreciate that, and becoming a member again. Let me see. So EJ says, thoughts on some manufacturers not getting rid of gasoline cars just yet. I think I've talked about this a bunch in the past too, but in case you didn't catch it on the last live streams, I think Toyota has the right approach, in my opinion, where, have something for everyone. And, they've said, you can make, 7 or 8 Prius Primes with the same battery materials as one EV. And again, even though people won't admit it, they don't drive more than 40 miles a day most of the time in most cases. So you have that Prius Prime being a fully electric vehicle for most people's usage cases, but you have the gas engine for that, to get rid of that range anxiety. And I think that, doing that, having that comfort level so that, you have the plug-in hybrids there for people who can plug in, you have regular hybrids for people who want to be more fuel efficient, but don't have the ability to plug in or don't want to pay the price premium or whatever the case might be. There's great options there. And then you have the gas stuff for the holdouts who just, don't want any kind of electrification or for whatever reason. And then you have the full EVs as well. I think offering something for everyone is great. I think that's the way to do it. And I think, Toyota says that, according to the numbers, that, I mean, they've crunched the math and they're like, look, if everyone went and just bought a hybrid, that would do more to reduce all the emissions than everyone, because you're never going to get everyone to run out to an electric vehicle, just for whatever reasons. It's just never going to happen, for a long, long time, decades, so but hybrids are an easier sell, and they're seeing this with the RAV4. A lot of people are like, hey, I really actually like the hybrid in the RAV4. Maybe I'll pay the $1,200 extra, the minor little upcharge for the better fuel economy, the slight bit of extra power, in the RAV4 hybrid. And, that's a very easy transition. And it makes a huge difference in those emissions when you're talking about hundreds of thousands and millions of vehicles on the road. So, instead of fighting for those 10,000 people to buy an EV, you sell 100,000 hybrids and you have a better result and you use less materials. And so, I don't know. It's so weird how Toyota got so much crap for that stance, but I think over time, more people will realize that that's probably going to be the more realistic way to go about this, until we get the battery materials we need and stuff. It's just, there's a lot. I mean, that's why GM can't build Hummer EVs. They can't get enough battery materials. Same thing with, all the GM EVs. They're just struggling to get battery stuff. So they're, because, supply constrained, that's driving prices up, making everything less affordable. It's just this big, ugly domino effect. And I mean, EVs are great. We own one, so I'm not, saying anything against them, but it's just, trying to rush that whenever you can do more good with hybrids, that are going to offend people less, most likely too. It just seems like the path of least resistance. And when you're talking about consumer behavior, which is very hard to change, very hard to get people to switch. People don't like change. As a species, we do not like change. So the least amount of change possible is a hybrid, and still does a ton of good. And I think, that's worth supporting. And so we'll see what other companies do. But I mean, Hyundai's had great success with their hybrids too. So I think it's not just a Toyota thing. Hyundai's doing same great thing, and hopefully other companies join in a little bit more too. Anyway, though, we got a couple of minutes here, then I do have to sign off. So A Silva says, hey, Matt, I'm in El Salvador visiting family. The car scene is very different, mostly diesel trucks and vans. We can't get in the States, and cars are modded like crazy. Big fans of the Toyota Hilux here. That's awesome. I hope you're enjoying your trip, and I hope it really goes well. Thanks for chiming in there. It's really cool to hear about how the car scene is different in different places in the world. It's so fascinating seeing that, and I've done a little bit of traveling, seeing just how different it is in some places, and it's really, really fun to see. And so enjoy your time in El Salvador. Thanks for tuning in while you're visiting family. I appreciate it. And hope you have a good time over there. Goth Rocker says, Matt, I agree about the new WRX. Should have never had all that cladding. They should have seriously kept it normal and then offered a wilderness version with all that cladding. Totally agree. And I think a wilderness version would be actually cool. It'd be cool if you offer that, and people that want a sedan Crosstrek, essentially, go for it. Great. But to put that on the regular WRX, definitely bizarre. Totally agree. And Truck and Car Guy says, I'd rather keep my Lancer than buy a new WRX. Yeah, those are great as well. SLMD Sedan, thank you so much also for rejoining, becoming a member again. He says, hey, Matt, enjoying the live stream while I'm at work. Thanks for joining in. I'm glad to provide some entertainment here during your work hours there. And Goth Rocker says, keep your Lancer, Mitsubishi. I hope surprises us one day out of nowhere, like Subaru did with the BRZ out of nowhere. Yeah, especially Mitsubishi, as much as they struggle, I highly doubt we'll see that, but it'd be a great surprise. And Goth Rocker is talking about the battery materials and costs for the EVs there being the downfall. All right, so Tom, I really appreciate the super chat. I'm going to end on that comment though here. So we are at an hour and a half, and I gotta sign off here. So he says, the older I get, the more I start caring about having a nicer interior. Is the Elantra N interior decent? I'm coming from a base Focus ST. If I were to buy one, it would be the facelift version. Well, thanks for the context about coming from the Focus ST. Based on coming from that, the Elantra N, will be an upgrade as far as the tech, of course. From a material standpoint, you're probably breaking even there. I'd say, it's been a few years since I've been in a Focus ST, but you may even have a little bit cheaper plastic in the Hyundai in some cases. But if you're interested in having a nicer interior, I don't think it's bad though. I think the seats are great. You have heating in the seats, and if you get the DCT, I'm not sure if you're doing the DCT or not, but you can get that with the moonroof, which is a nice little touch to have. I think, again, I'd really see if you can drive an Elantra N to make this decision, justified in your mind as well. But I would really say that, especially if you're okay with a base Focus ST interior, the Elantra N driving experience is going to be so fun that it will make up for, a hard plastic panel here or there. It is just, for the money, I still think is probably the most fun per dollar you can have in that, segment and category of car. It's just, I'd say even more fun than a Type R in a lot of ways for way less money. The crackling and the popping of the exhaust, all the customization, all the adjustments, the fun graphics when you shift and just when you redline it. They just did a lot of fun things. They went the extra mile with creativity in that car, which isn't always, a guarantee with a lot of these other sporty vehicles. And I still love the Elantra N. So even though, the driving position is a little odd. So honestly, that's the biggest gripe about the interior, in my opinion, is the seats are angled so that you're the bottom of your thigh is kind of under pressure whenever you're putting the clutch in, which I don't love. But even with that annoying me, I would still probably go for an Elantra N over an SI, because it's only a few grand more and you have way more power, way more customization, way more comfort, way more sound. I think even with the compromises of the Elantra N, it is worth every penny, and it's still a fantastic bargain. We will see if they change the price on the refresh and if they change anything else. But I love the Elantra N. It is still one of my top buys per fun per dollar goes. It's really tough to beat. So hopefully that helps you out, Tom. And Ruffy, I really appreciate the very generous super chat there to end. I really appreciate it, guys. Thanks for all joining in here. SMD says, Matt, real quick before you leave, I saw your C6 reviews and they were both negative towards it. C6 was a little underwhelming at the time. I think over the past, almost decade, they've kind of aged a little bit better. I would love to do another video to revisit the C6 to see, if it's gotten any better in my mind now that I've driven other things and how it's changed with the automotive landscape changing. It just, to me, C6 just was kind of mediocre. C7 was just so much more exciting. Obviously, it's faster, it's newer. But C5 even had a little bit more charm to it. I don't know. I'd love. I really need to drive a C6 again, but I was really lukewarm on it. And I mean, now they're cheaper, and they're even better bargains and stuff. So maybe in that context, it would be better. But as of now, I don't really have a ton of love for the C6 personally. But I'm totally open-minded to trying another one. And if someone offers one to me or Harrison Auto Sales gets one in, I'd love to hop in it again and do another review, and certainly think that one's worth a follow-up. But anyway, thank you all very much for joining in here for the live stream here. I hope you have a great rest of your weekend. I really appreciate all the kindness and support and all that. And I'm looking forward to talking to all of you again here next weekend. But in the meantime, stay tuned. There's going to be some great videos here coming this week as well. And anyway, thank you all very much for joining in here, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.